So this is the beginning of a series on my channel that I have wanted to start for a while now, and it's really unlike any of my other content. And the few times I have made any content that's mental health related, I have really had to muster up the courage to do so, and it's really been the same for this video as well, because when I'm talking about my own mental health, it's just way more difficult for me to talk about, and I'm going to hopefully unpack some of that in this series and maybe even in this video itself. I don't really know why I decided to make it a series when I know that it's so hard for me to do these videos, because it took me so long to even muster up the courage to do this video itself. I've had this video idea for months now, but it's taken me so long to reach this point. But I also know that this is a topic that I am really passionate about, and I want to talk about it more. I really want to open up dialogue, and that's what I hope to achieve with this series. When I originally posted my mental health story on my channel, I know I had a reason for doing so, and then last year when I posted the video about my depression relapse, or just in general when I've made posts on my Instagram about my depression or my mental health in general, I've always done so with a reason, and I've known it personally, but at some point I started asking myself a broader question of, why am I posting this stuff? What is the purpose of me sharing this with you all? Who really cares about my depression? Hey guys, it's Kav, and today I'm going to be starting a new series on my channel called End the Stigma, in which I'm going to be openly and authentically discussing topics related to mental health and hopefully fostering some discussion and dialogue about said topics. At some point I started asking myself a broader question of, why am I posting this stuff? What is the purpose of me sharing this with you all? Who really cares about my depression? So today's episode, I guess, is about a discussion that has really been bothering me for a while now, and that is why I think it is important to talk about mental health and to have dialogue about these subjects. Now, of course, before I go any further with this video, I want to clarify that by no means am I claiming that I am a mental health professional and that I have all the answers to what it means to deal with a mental illness, or how society views mental illnesses and topics related to mental illness, because by no means do I have any of that. I don't have a psych degree. I am just someone who's grown up with multiple mental illnesses, and I really want to start talking about that more, and I'll be talking about why in this video, and I'll be talking about why I wanted to start the series in the first place and what the entire point of it is. Now, I want to start off this discussion with what I think is really the crux of why I believe it is important to talk about mental health, and why I think we need these discussions, why it's not only useful but actually necessary. So yes, I am dealing with mental illnesses, and I have been for years now, but I don't think that I am in any way special for having depression. My goal with this series or with this video is not to make people feel sorry for me for having depression. I don't expect pity or sympathy, because I don't think that I'm out of the ordinary. In fact, I think I am very, very far from special for dealing with depression, because I know more people with depression or some other mental illness than I do without. And yet, despite the fact that I know so many people who have dealt with these realities for so long in their lives, it is a topic that is so rarely discussed, especially one that is discussed openly and honestly the way we would have other discussions. And that's something that really bothers me. Now, I do want to say this. I don't believe that anyone is obligated to talk about their difficulties, their challenges, or any part of their life that they do not want to talk about. Some people choose to focus on the positives of their life and their achievements, and maybe not their mental illness or just anything that isn't necessarily positive, and that is completely fine. Everyone has the right to share what they want with others, but the issue, I think, lies in the fact that so many people, including me, feel pressured never to talk about what makes us unhappy. I think that there's this idea that we're only valid when we're feeling good, but the fact is you're valid no matter what. You're valid just for existing, and framing it as though your positives, your achievements, your accomplishments are the only important parts of you is so harmful and debilitating, because your sadness and your pain and your grief is just as valid. That doesn't mean that anyone wants you to stay sad forever. It just means that no one should feel pressured to act a way that they don't truly feel because of stupid societal norms. I've really been thinking about this question. Why did I make these videos about my mental health? Why have I made these posts about my depression? Because I make all of my Instagram posts and all of my videos with a purpose, with a reason. I mean, contrary to what you all might believe, I go in to each video with a plan, with a reason as to why I'm making it. And this question just came to me. Why did I want to make these videos? What was the purpose of them? For my mental health story, I was in a much different place then than I am now. At that point in my life, I truly was happy. I felt like I had overcome all of the challenges that had plagued my life for so long. And at the time, I was making it in honor of World Mental Health Day, which is a cause that I really strongly support, and I really just wanted to share this with you all so that maybe someone out there could feel less alone. I think that's really what I was going for with that video. But then I really started to think about why I made the video about my depression relapse. And you know, there were a few reasons that made sense to me. One of them was that I really just wanted to be honest with the people who watch my channel. In that video, I talked a lot about the struggle I had with not being honest, I guess, or feeling like I was lying even if I was actually just keeping a part of my life secret that I didn't want to share yet. And I talked about that struggle in that video, but I don't think that that's the only reason I wanted to make it, and I've really tried to figure out why I wanted to make it and why especially I want to make the Instagram posts I do that discuss my mental health, where I'm at currently or where I've been recently. And when I really got down to it, I think that it just came down to I hated having to pretend I was happier than I am. Again, for some people, they choose actively to focus on the positives, and that is fine. No one should have to share a part of their life that they don't want to share, and for them, it's a conscious decision not to talk about this stuff, and that's okay, that's valid. They are not obligated to, no one has a right to that information. But for me, I really just felt pressured never to talk about my depression. At least never to talk about it truly authentically. I felt like I could make my mental illness story because at that point in my life, my mental illness was almost something of the past. This was me in a point where I felt like I was truly in recovery, where I was good, and I was talking about my mental health as something that had happened to me. So responses would come as kind of congratulatory or kind of happy that I had gotten out of that part of my life. But then when it came to relapsing with my depression, there came this pressure that my sadness or my grief or my despair was not valid. That my feelings that weren't 100% positive and happy the way I usually am made me less valid. That I only have worth when I'm happy. That's where I think the issue comes in. Not in someone actively choosing not to share a certain part of themselves, because that is their right not to. But for the people like me who feel like we aren't allowed to share the entirety of ourselves because we feel that people only like us when we're a certain way. And I really did contemplate whether I wanted to make this video in the first place, because maybe that was just me. Maybe I was the only person who felt this way. But earlier this week, I posted a thread on my Twitter where I talked about how I wish that we could be more honest when we're upset. I wish that we didn't have this pressure to always be happy. And the number of people who agreed with me was a pretty decent number. Regardless, I think even one person being made to feel this way is a problem, let alone the number that did agree with me. And who knows, maybe there are more people out there who also feel this way. And it really goes beyond social media for me, because it's one thing for your Instagram to look like a picture perfect version of yourself. That's how a lot of people use their social media. That's the more common way of using it, and that's fine. But even in real life, even in face-to-face conversations, I still feel that pressure to pretend to be happier than I am. There have been times where I've canceled plans with people because I just didn't want to fake being happy that day. I would have gone if I could be how I truly felt, but I didn't want to have this pressure to pretend that I feel a way that I don't. I think that there's something to be said about our society's inability to discuss sadness as an emotion. The few times I have tweeted about being depressed, the response has always been, oh, you're gonna be happy, I know it, or just a very generic, you're not alone message, but those aren't really real. Those aren't really authentic. It's just how people respond when you do have the bravery and courage to tell them how you're truly feeling. It's almost discomfort, and I truly don't believe that it's anybody's fault. I think it's just how we've been conditioned. I think it's how we've grown up. We're equipped to deal with certain emotions, but I just feel that we're not really equipped to deal with sadness, let alone with depression, which is so much more intense than just sadness. When we refuse to discuss a topic that affects so many people, we're doing a disservice to every single one of them. The rates for depression and anxiety in adolescents are just growing. They're not shrinking, they are growing. And our inability to talk about it doesn't help the problem. That doesn't mean that I'm saying we should always be talking about this stuff. I mean, I am an optimist. I am a positive person. I love positivity so much. But life isn't always positive. Life isn't always happy. Constantly feeling pressured to frame it that way just does a disservice to everyone. It does a disservice to the person who's being forced to frame it that way. It does a disservice to others who are then going to internalize these messages and grow up doing the same thing. It just doesn't work. It hasn't been working so far, so obviously it's not the best method. Obviously, we should talk about positive and happy things, but we should also have the ability to talk about things that upset us, things that aren't great. And that's not always dwelling on the negative. Yes, there are some people who are more negative than others, but just feeling your emotions doesn't make you an inherently negative person. Because the thing about emotions is that none of them last forever. Maybe you're sad today and maybe you'll be super happy tomorrow. Maybe you'll be depressed for a few months, but within those few months you will have days where you're not feeling as bad, and there will come a point when you're out of it. Then you might fall back into it again, but you'll get out of it again. This stuff doesn't last forever. It doesn't just stay one way. It fluctuates. Emotions fluctuate. How your mental illness presents itself in your life is a fluctuating thing. So even if you are sad one day, you might not be so sad the next. Even if you are completely depressed and really truly hating everything to the point where you can't get up out of bed one day or even for 1 week, that again is not something that will last forever. And I'm not just saying that as empty words, I'm saying it as someone who is living through depression right now. And maybe you're watching this as someone who is depressed and you don't believe me, and that's fine, because there are times I don't believe myself when I say that. There are times people say that to me and I don't believe them. So you don't have to believe me, but it is true. Even if I don't always believe it, that doesn't make it any less true either. The reason I started this series is unlike any other reason I've ever started anything on my channel. When I talk about books, it's because I love them and I'm passionate about them and I want to share my love for them. When I started the Diversity 101 series on my channel, it was because I wanted to make informative content about a topic that I am so passionate about. My goal with this series is really not to be informative. Again, I don't want to go into the series claiming that I'm a mental health professional, because I'm not. I'm just someone who has lived the realities of living with mental illnesses and who wants to openly and authentically discuss that, because I've been prevented from doing so for so long. I've seen other people be prevented from doing so for so long, and someone has to step up and try to change it. And I'm not saying that that's just me. I know for a fact there are other people working on it out there, and I'm not saying that I have the power to change society, because I know I don't. But if these videos make even one person feel a little more valid, then that's all I really want to do with them. I don't know what direction this series is going to take. I don't know how often videos are going to come out. I don't really have a plan for it. I just want to make people feel a little less alone, and I hope that these videos manage to do that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon with a brand new one. As always, I love you all. Goodbye.